Everyone. Thanks for joining us on Screw the Stock Market. I'm Alex Escobar. Aziz Yusuf, thanks for joining us.
Hey, always happy to be here.
Well, I'm excited. We got another good episode. This is a really unique guest. His name is Chip Emely, and he has a product that is focused on navigating debt. Essentially, it's a software tool that can help um, speed up how fast you pay out your debts off, save you a bunch of money on interest, and you know, even though generally on this show we're focused on offense, we're focused on building wealth, we're focused on getting rich, we're focused on that stuff. But before that, we got to kind of get rid of bad debt. We got to stop playing defense, right? And we got to get out of the hole. So I think it's a really cool tool. What did you think about it, Aziz?
It was an interesting tool. I mean, it's super flexible, and from an investment viewpoint, it kind of helps you figure out once your properties have been leveraged, then already you've taken money out of them, then refinance, how to basically now strategize to get those properties debt free as soon as possible without impacting your cash pool. So I thought that that was interesting, and that you could easily just customize it for whatever other expenditures you need, to still using this magical algorithm that it utilizes to get those properties out of debt as quickly as possible without impacting your bottom line. So I thought it was cool. I thought it could be very useful in that sense. And yeah, it was a good conversation.
Yeah, I bet you he would not approve of the word magical algorithm. He would say it's just math, right? It's just logical math that's programmed into it. But you're right. Like it's flexible and it's something that I guess isn't out there. I've never heard of anything like this. So hope you guys get a lot of value from it. Check it out. Feel free to follow up with Chip directly if you're interested. I think it's a pretty powerful tool. So enjoy. Okay, so Chip, Emily, thank you so much for joining us today on the show.
My
We're
pleasure.
really excited to talk to you. Um, and so we met at a networking event, I guess a virtual networking event several months ago, but I
hmm
really
hmm
was excited that we got a chance to talk. And I think that, what you have to share is really relevant to a lot of our listeners. So um, we're excited. So what we'll do is
Great.
maybe give you the first few minutes to just tell us a little bit about who you are, where you
hmm
came from, and how you got to where you are. Um, and we'll just kind of let you take it away.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Alex and Aziz, for the time today. Um, so, my name is Chip Emily, and my background is IT. So, I've been an IT consultant for 36 years and have always had an interest in technology, even as a kid. And I've done some high-end audio for a while, still, dabble in that. Anything basically with a plug or battery, I'll do. But at some point, even supporting other people's tech, it got to the point where a call before 8 o'clock in the morning may have been, the server's not working, my email isn't working, the backups didn't work right. So that after a while, kind of got a little burned out on the tech side. Meanwhile, we also had a company now for 24 years that is a broker of products and services. One of the service lines was this very unique software that once I did my research was absolutely fascinating in that it helps eliminate debt as fast as possible. So I've transitioned many of my clients off now. I have a few left, but this is really what I do now. This is my passion to help people get out of debt, but also to help those who like debt or use debt as leverage to maximize or optimize that leverage. Because even if you're leveraging debt for, say, rental properties or any kind of property investment, do you really want to pay all that interest? We can maximize that to give you more money and better equity to then expand your portfolio. And that's really what this will do for investors. So yes, we've got the basic consumer side, your average family with, a primary home and some cars, maybe student loans, what have you. Yep,
Mhm.
totally help with that. But on this side, it really will help where you can buy a rental property, include that rental income in the software, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and show how to pay that rental property off in could be 8 years, right? And then turn around and buy another one and another one. And you keep offsetting it with the rental income. you could have an investment portfolio or a property portfolio faster with less interest and more money in your pocket.
Well, that sounds really appealing.
Yeah, that's extremely appealing.
So, yeah, I mean, tell us a little more. I guess I think that's super appealing, right? And especially like you said, like I'll tell my own personal anecdote with debt, right? Grad school had $80,000 in debt, and that seemed like I would never get out of it. It just seemed really discouraging and overwhelming. And eventually, when I became a real estate agent, I started putting entire commission checks towards that debt, and I was able to get out of it in I think maybe 4 years once I really got
Fantastic.
down. And it was this load off. And what was cool for me was the feeling of, first of all, I could see my bank statements just getting bigger, right? Like I just got to
Right.
keep my money.
Yep.
And then secondly, I could play offense instead of just playing defense in terms of getting out of this hole. Now I could worry about, all right, now I have this money. What am I going to do with it?
That's right.
And it's a very liberating thing. Aziz, you don't know anything
Awesome.
about debt, do you?
Oh no, no, no. Law school, $200,000 student loan debt? No,
Ouch.
no.
Ouch is right.
My brother is worse. I mean, medical school. I think
Yeah.
he's almost like close to half a million debt. He did two grad programs and medical school.
Wow.
So, our audience is at all different levels. I think people who might still be in the hole and eager to someday be able to start thinking about building a future.
Hmm.
And some of us are like I said, for me, my goal is actually to get a bunch of debt, right? I would love to have $10 million in debt, which means I probably own $20 million in real estate under my control. So
Hmm.
that would be a good sign, meaning, hey, I'm
Yeah.
buying more properties, and kind of like what you said, there's debt. It can be a tool, right? And
Hmm.
so if we can maximize it, even better. So I think we're just gonna shut up and let you tell us more because this is
All right.
intriguing.
So um, let me just cover the consumer side first for a moment, just to give kind of a baseline. So I'll start with the consumer side for a moment, just because that's kind of a baseline to start. In that, Aziz has hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt. His brother, even, more hundreds of thousands of student loan debt. So any debt this program will work with, mortgages, credit cards, student loans, HELOCs, car loans, you name it. And what it does is eliminate the interest and the time to pay off that debt. So, you know, using debt like that, there's a way to have that paid off as fast as possible. So it could be even, let's say you have a house you bought 2 years ago, you have some student loan debt, maybe a car, a couple credit cards. All of that debt could be eliminated in possibly 15, 14 years, maybe even less, and save tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest. I mean, just for my clients alone, I saved an average of $192,000 in interest payments and had them out of debt on an average of 9.4 years. So that's huge. Now, because yeah, we have debt, absolutely. But why do we have to pay all that interest? Right? The banks have figured this out down to a science of how to make as much money as possible on every penny. Well, this does the exact opposite. It's opposing algorithms to the bank's algorithms to find the fastest way out of debt, much like a GPS in your car, right? So if you travel to a destination, let's say from from the DC area to New York City, well, there are three ways to navigate that, right? One is you could just head north and eventually you'll figure it out. You run into New York City if you follow the signs. Number two is you could use a map. Better, but it's still manual, right? You don't have any real-time data. Or the GPS on your phone or in your car means you're getting up-to-date ETAs, reroutes you around traffic and congestion, and finds the absolute fastest path to your destination. That's what this software does for debt. It finds the absolute fastest path to zero and will adjust if you need to buy a new car Or if you have extra money to apply to it, like you did, Alex, with your debt, and you can adjust it and adjusting for the best use of your money.
So
Now,
it's like that recalculating feature when you miss
yep,
the turn. Oh,
that's right.
I was supposed to turn there. Recalculating. Oh, that's cool. Okay,
Yeah, and
Exactly
it's and
right.
it's
good
So,
analogy.
And it's interesting that you mentioned the recalculation aspect because
mhm,
we had another interview previously with a friend of ours who's a doctor, and he actually his debt journey was a little bit different. He actually regrets paying off all of his debt right up front,
really,
just because it restricted him from taking care, advantage of certain opportunities, investment wise, that earned him a lot more money when he actually did pursue them later on. So he was
hmm
saying, like had he known that that was an option, that's something he can do, he wouldn't put as much into the debt up front. So having that ability to kind of recalculate, that's kind of valuable as well in terms of your tool, where it kind of
yeah,
allows to readjust and reshuffle things based on your needs.
Yeah, I guess kind of
exactly.
like when you're actually following a GPS, you can weigh, right, an opportunity with our current roadmap and say, okay, this time I guess I'll take this other opportunity instead. That seems super flexible.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And that's one of the huge benefits of the software. So, and what Aziz was talking about is, you know, hey, my debt may be low interest. Why wouldn't I let that ride and put money in the market or an investment? And that's totally valid, especially if you're comparing apples to apples. But what this software does is it flips the script because it saves you so much interest. And you can apply those what if scenarios without committing to anything. You can put in that investment and change how much you apply to debt and see what it does to the software. And you can make those decisions based on more valuable data and whatever they might be. The software gives no judgment. So, yep, if you want to reduce your additional debt payment to maybe $100 a month and you have $1,000 completely discretionary, take that $900 and apply it into some kind of investment opportunity that you might miss. Or you can say, what if I added 300 to the software? What if I added 400 to the software? And you can see how it would change the numbers and you decide what the benefit is.
It's
And
like
if the
having a
change
grand
from
total.
100 to 500 is only so much in savings, but the change from 500 to 900 in your investment yields this, then you can make that decision. So it really is a tool for investors to optimize what they're doing.
This
Oh,
sounds
cool.
like magic, Chip. This is amazing.
So let's
Yeah.
see it.
Oh,
You want to
it's really
share?
fantastic. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well,
So
let's
this
test.
this is a consumer example, but the same things apply. Debt is debt, so it doesn't matter what kind of debt it is. So this is an actual report that we run, and analysis is free. So we can run an analysis, like in your case, Aziz, or your brother, or anyone else, and see what the software will do for them. So in this case, this is an actual report, but a fictitious client. Her name is Kate Smith, and she has a mortgage, a student loan, a car loan, and two credit cards. And she's servicing about 370,000 in debt at about 2,700 per month. Here's the bad news. That 370 is not really 370. She's really going to pay 557,309 because $187,000 of that is going to be interest. 51% on top of that 370 is just interest.
Hmm.
And people have, for the past 24 months, this has been great, right? They're getting 3%, 275 on a mortgage. And that is a great rate, but it's not the interest you will pay, right? You're going to pay closer to 40, 45% of actual interest, if not more. So what the debt software will do is reduce that from 187 and $81 to 75 717, saving 111 364 in interest. And guys, this is not theoretical. This is literally money she will not pay the banks.
60% of your money back.
Exactly right.
That's
Yep.
amazing.
Yeah. And she'll be out of debt in 10.9 years versus 30 years. So she's out of debt in a third of the time, saves well over $100,000 in interest. And let's flip this to rental properties or investments for the moment. Imagine being able to save that much money on your first investment property, and then you gain equity faster. You can then apply that money to the next property, put it into the software, and do it again and again and again, potentially saving $1 million in interest that you're going to have to pay somebody. Why pay that? Why not put that money back in your pocket for your investment versus somebody else's investment?
Very
And you're
interesting.
out of debt faster. So you're building your portfolio even faster. And because of the what ifs, in this case with a consumer, she says, well, I need to buy a car. Well, it's going to be a $30,000 car, 5.5 year note, 2% interest. And she can see what it will do without committing to anything. And if she puts that in the software and it raises her debt time to 12 years instead of 10.9, she can say, well, it's a new car. I need a new car. And it's only going to increase my time in debt by 1 year. I'm okay with that. Or maybe she has a goal to be out of debt at a certain point, and therefore it's not going to work. And she can then buy a less expensive car or drive her car till the wheels fall off. But she's making the decision based on the data, not based on, yeah, I can afford a car payment. And it tells her and forecasts how it's going to affect her future with debt. Same thing here. She tells me she has $200 to apply to her debt on a monthly basis. Well, maybe she doubles it to 400. She saved some money somewhere else. And she can see what that 400 will do to these numbers. Maybe it only changes it by a few months, in which case she's like, nope, I like buying lunch every day. I'm not worried about that. Or she makes that decision, again, based on the data. So it gives you data to work with. Now, since we're really talking about investments and rental properties and how to maximize that, that's what this will do for a rental investor. Now, flipping's a little different because flipping is usually a short transaction, maybe 6 months, 9 months,
Mm-hmm.
and it's usually hard money. So it's a little bit different to work with. But if you're going to buy a rental and keep the mortgage on it, and then buy another rental, keep the mortgage on it, and get rental income, this software is going to maximize every dollar and tell you how you can save the most, whether you're going to apply an extra $10,000 into the software and the debt portfolio, or use that $10,000 toward a down payment on another property or to renovate something. It gives you that data all the time to make those best decisions.
So is it essentially kind of giving you the most optimum price, or not price, but the amount that you should be paying each month on your monthly payments? How's the software deciding how to optimize? I'm still not clear on that part.
Sure. Great question, Aziz. So I use this analogy quite a bit, but it's so apt. The GPS in your car is going to make constant updates, give you data of how long it'll take to get to your destination. It'll change routes depending upon what's happening, that it knows it's happening ahead of you. This will do the same thing. So it uses strategic payoff. So it's going to utilize that extra $200 to the best benefit possible. You're not going to see a lump sum of 200 applied to a credit card, for example, and it's not linear. So it's not going to just pay the credit card first, then the second one, then the car loan. It doesn't work that way. It literally is going to do whatever is best every day with timing, strategic payoff, maximizing interest cancellation to save you as much money as possible and adapt as your circumstances will change. Now, Kate here, she could have $2,000 extra, but she told me 200. That's the number the client gives me. She may have another $200,000 that she's figuring out what to do. Does she buy a rental property and have that as a mortgage and then a rental income? Or does she put it into the software to pay off her current debt first? Does she buy a car? Does she invest the money? The software handles debt, right? So it will handle looking at the best way to solve that real estate rental question and scenario. It does not handle investments. So, I recommend either if you really have the knowledge or work with a financial planner to figure out if the investment works on that side of things. but she could put the $2,000 a month into this and see how fast it'll pay off, and at least have that side of the equation. And then she can compare that to the other side of the equation. And this will work with business properties, commercial properties. It'll work with commercial capital loans, equipment loans, anything that is debt. This will help pay off as fast as possible, which means
Could
more
you?
money
Oh,
in
sorry.
your pocket to invest in something else.
So essentially you're inputting all of your different debts into the program, so to speak.
Yep.
And it's gonna look at what the interest rates are, what the terms of payment are, how many years, all that stuff, what your income is, what your various obligations are. And based on that, it does its algorithmic magic and it figures out how much you should be paying towards each loan, if I'm understanding correctly. To
Correct.
get you the quickest and most optimized payment path that still gives you
Yep.
flexibility in finances.
Correct. Exactly. Because you're in control, just
Okay, I
like in
got
a car, right? The GPS doesn't say, Aziz, you can't make that turn. Nope, you can make that turn. It's just going to give you a new calculation and a new data.
okay. And if I've got like a new expense that's popped up, or like I crashed my car and I have to go buy a new car or something, I can just add that to the list and it will
Yep.
tabulate everything and then give me a new price output for each of the different debt vehicles that I have.
Exactly. Well, yes, exactly. So it gives you directives and you follow the directives. Pay mortgage this, pay car payment this. And you just follow the directives. Note that you executed those items and you just follow software, just like a turn by turn directions.
Okay.
So on any given month, right? Like you have your
Mhm.
minimum payments, right, for your mortgage and credit cards and stuff. So you know you have to at least make those, and then it'll just literally say, like you just said. So those are the turn by turn instructions. It'll say for this month, Alex, pay. I have these $200 extra,
Mhm.
and it'll just calculate and it'll say, okay, this month paid $200 extra to this, and next month paid $200 extra to that. Um, and there's just I think the analogy, and I think this report is more of a summary. It's not the instructions that we would see as a user, right? So I
Correct.
think
This report is a result of a free analysis. Doesn't cost anything. We generate
okay.
this report. I review it with the client, and they see how the software will work for them. So in this case, it's going to save her 111,364 and be out of debt in 10.9 years. That's
Mhm.
very impressive.
So this is available for anyone for free. Where can we find this? To go through the process of doing the.
So for the analysis, it's best just to contact me directly at my email address or text me, and I can send the analysis to somebody via email. It's a simple Word doc. They fill it out, send it back to me. I input the numbers on the back end and set up a time to run through this report with them and see how it can help save them money. Everybody's scenario is different. That's the beautiful thing. This is not a cookie cutter solution. This
Mhm.
is every single person is different. Everyone's priorities are different. If this is a straight consumer who can't stand debt, that's great. If this is like you, Alex, that you like good debt, you want to leverage it as a tool, well, this turns a screwdriver into a power screwdriver,
Mhm.
right? Because now you're using the same type of tool, but you're using it way more efficiently than you were before.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. It's a big step to realize that there's a whole world of opportunity out there for you. And then you've already started to dive into your education, which is required to be able to navigate the world beyond the stock market. But the next step is to take action. So if you want a chance to invest with me and my team, sign up for our investor club at legatoinvest.com/invest. We'll schedule a call with you, get to know you, your background, and your investment objectives. And if there's a good fit, we'll start to present you with live opportunities to invest in multifamily apartment deals. So again, legatoinvest.com/invest. I can totally see that. Yeah. Um, so I guess so. That's the big call to action, right? Is reach out and we'll make sure to share your contact information and your email for the listeners. And in terms of the step by steps. I guess it's just I guess being ready to kind of know, okay, this month you just check into your portal. I guess we have a portal, you log in.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about the service. Like, okay, this report is free, but what is the actual, I
The
guess
high
there's a
end.
paid service. Yeah.
So the service is a portal. You were exactly right. So you log into the portal and it has a dashboard that shows always up to date these values that you can change what it shows. So maybe you want to see how, when I'll be out of debt and how many years I'm saving and how much interest I'm saving. And then you've got basically a list of actions. You will execute each action as it tells you to do them. And you can be as flexible or as structured as you want. You could put in every single, Netflix, Spotify, Apple, groceries, internet, right, cell phone bill, or you could just say, "Yep, here are my expenses, a lump sum of, $3,200, and I'm going to apply discretionary income of 200 or 400 or whatever it might be to the debt," and the software will maximize use of that money. And also use best use of monies that you may have. Maybe you've got $10,000 sitting in a 0.05 interest savings account and you want to keep 5,000 as an emergency fund. It'll say, hey, if you want to use that other 5,000 to a much better use than 0.05 interest, this is what you could do with it. Same thing with investments on the property side. You can decide, well, shoot, I have $100,000 to put down on a property. Do I need to put 100,000 down? But if I only put 50,000 down, and you can put the what ifs into the software before you make the decision and see how it's going to impact in either direction.
Very interesting.
So just to kind of summarize it in that sense, then the free software just tells you how much you would save, whereas the paid software shows you the steps that you have to take to get to that saving number.
Yeah, the free is the analysis,
Right.
right?
It just
So
tells
I
you how
run the
much you can.
analysis and it generates this report just like you see here.
Right. But it doesn't
The
give you the step-by-step guide in terms of what you need to do
correct,
yet. That's the
right.
paid service.
So someone sees what they can do with the software. Obviously, for Kate, it's going to work for her like tremendously. So she's going to then purchase the software or activate her software. And once we get her activated, we have a whole customer care department. They take her through a training, make sure it's set up for her, tweaks everything to make sure her numbers are where she wants them to be. And then she uses that software. She checks in, once a week, maybe, to see what needs to be done. She pays those bills exactly as it tells her to do it. And she sees it changes. So 3 months from now, it might say 10.4 years because she's ahead of schedule. A year from now, it might say, 11.6 years. So it changes as she's making this payment, just like when you're driving a car and changing direction. And if we look at the amortization table, well, if she refied that house at 31 years old, she's going to be paying until she's 62. It's a 30-year mortgage, right? The software will have her completely debt free at 42, and then she can maximize wealth beyond that. Now, on the investment side, same thing. You could put in a house. You have a primary house. You already owe on that. Maybe you refied it in the last 24 months, like many people did. And it shows you how to maximize that investment and how much money you have to put into the next property. And then once you have the next mortgage, you put that into the software and it recalculates. Now you're saving on both mortgages. And then the third rental is going to save on 3 mortgages. And you can have up to 10 mortgages in the software that you can, you know, save as much interest as humanly possible. And it's constantly recalculating. So that you always know what your debt situation is like and how much it's going to save you. And then what position you're in based on your finances when you can go for the next property.
Very
So
cool.
the thing I'm most familiar with that's similar, I guess, is the idea of the Dave Ramsey's debt snowball, right?
Yeah.
Which I read about in his book, and it makes a lot of sense, right? You pay off, I guess, the smallest balance first, and then once you've paid that smallest balance, then you have, I guess, whatever your payment was for that you can add
Sure.
to the next smallest balance. And so that's like a roadmap, I guess, more of that manual roadmap analogy that you described instead of this GPS
Correct.
analogy.
Correct.
Um, and I don't know. I mean, can you give us some examples of some of the funny things that your software will do that might not be captured in something like the debt snowball or just kind of making your payment?
Absolutely. So, and you nailed it, Alex. The debt snowball is like that map in my example earlier of navigating from DC to New York. It's manual. It doesn't take into account anything that comes along the way and changes in real time and gives you that optimization. Yeah, it's a great way to get out of debt. Absolutely. Any way to get out of debt is great when you're talking about this kind of debt. But the software turbocharges that ability because it doesn't do it in a linear fashion. It's going to do whatever it thinks it's best all the time. And it's interesting you bring up the debt snowball because I actually did compare these numbers in a debt snowball scenario and a debt avalanche scenario. So with debt snowball, here's debt snowball, same debt portfolio. She can save 17.7 years. Not bad. With Debt Shredder, she can save 20 years. So it's 2.3 years faster and $17,667 more in interest saved than it is by using Debt Snowball. Now, also, if you remember Dave Ramsey with Debt Snowball, and this is not a criticism, but typically Dave advises to use this for secondary debt, right? Not for a mortgage. He
Mm-hmm.
considers a mortgage separate than the credit cards, car loans, and what have you. Is that correct, Alex?
Yeah, yeah, because I
Right.
think it's the idea that it's just so overwhelming. It's like, oh, well, yeah,
Yep.
it's a big number.
Exactly. Exactly. So the reason he likes that snowball is one, it puts people on a path. Two, it makes it motivating because they see the progress faster by paying the lower balances faster, but it doesn't include the mortgage. This scenario included the mortgage because I wanted to compare it equally to the software, right? So
Mm-hmm.
even with the mortgage, the software beats it by $17,000. Now, debt avalanche is a similar concept, but it says order my debts from highest interest to lowest interest. Now, typically, a credit card is going to be your lowest balance and also your highest interest. So that's usually going to be around the first few debts anyway. But this isn't used as much by Dave Ramsey because it's less quick results
Mm-hmm.
up front because you're paying that the highest interest first. But even here, same similar numbers. The software will beat Debt Avalanche by 2.3 years and $17,578 more interest saved back in your pocket.
Very
So both
interesting.
scenarios, it will beat because what the software will do is very similar to Debt Snowball, I apologize, but it will turbocharge it and still gives you that motivating factor because you log in and you see how fast you're going to be out of debt and how much
Mm-hmm.
interest you're saving all the time. So I don't know about you guys, but when I'm driving long distances and I had that little ETA at my GPS, I'm trying to beat it. Right? Like, okay, I'm going to be there at 5 o'clock. I'm going for 4:45. Right?
Got me in trouble quite a few times.
Yeah, exactly right. But it's human behavior. Well, imagine that behavior in getting out of debt as fast as possible and seeing those numbers, people get excited and then they want to figure out how to get out of debt even faster. So it's super motivating. And again, when we look at the investment side, where debt may be a tool, not necessarily a bad thing, hey, then you're excited because that tool is being used more efficiently. You're still seeing how much money you can save. And if you're a consumer, this money is money in your pocket to maybe invest for retirement. If you're a retail investor, like what you guys are talking about, this number is how much can I put to my next property?
Mm-hmm.
What can I
I
use
like
this
that.
for next? Right?
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So I've
Well,
done those comparisons with that snowball and that avalanche, and they beat it every time.
no, thank you, man. That's really cool. I think like we said, this is something that's relevant to everyone, or maybe not
Mhm.
everyone. Maybe there's a select few who are able to just kind of not have this burden slash. I don't want to say it's just a bad thing, right? But it is a burden at the very least. It's
Mhm.
always a burden, is
Yep.
debt, right? And so, um,
Even as an
it's
investor, you've got debt over your head, even though you're using it as a tool.
yeah,
It's still there and still a concern if things, go sideways. You're leveraged at that point,
Yeah,
exactly.
but
and
this
that's what
would be
happened to
very
Dave.
valuable.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
this would be very valuable for investors in terms of if they've already leveraged their properties and they've refinanced and now they're just trying to pay off that property. This would be a great tool for that resource.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And if they
or even
refinance, all the
mhm.
better. It'll save you more interest. So this is not as opposed to refinancing, but that's not what this does. This is just software. No refinance, no consolidation, no changing lenders. If you want to do that, then it maximizes it even further. Fantastic.
Yeah, because I mean, you can build up equity. You get to that. I don't like one of the rules that I've heard is if you get to 30, 40% equity in a property, it's time to refinance, get some of that money out, and you can buy another property. And if
That's right.
you can build our equity faster. Now we're getting there, and maybe half the time or whatever, we're getting there a little bit faster. So that's very interesting. Even if you wanted to be more, I guess, tolerant to the added risk of the debt,
Sure.
which right now in my life I'm okay with it because I'm focused on kind of being aggressive and try. I had a really long call with my not a call, just kind of a debate with my eye doctor who happens to be a big real estate investor,
Hmm.
and he's in a very different position in life. He's a lot older than me. He's been earning a lot of income. He has a lot of wealth accumulated. So for him,
Sure.
every new investment is a risk, because he's like, well, I might lose it or things might go wrong with it, which is totally valid. It's totally true.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, it came down to strategy, right? Like where you are in life and where you are as an investor in terms of your objectives. He's in a position where losing is much more painful than it would be for me right now because I don't have that much to lose, but also because I'm focused on growth. I'm a little bit more aggressive,
Hmm.
because of that, just because of where we are in life. Um, so I think it's really interesting that this, just like debt is a tool, I think the debt shredder is also another tool that can help to, I guess, express whatever your strategy, whatever your priorities are in terms of debt, in terms of investment. So it's really cool. One last key question is how much is it?
Great question. So I always ask this question when I'm running this report, right? And let's say you guys had these numbers that we just showed a few minutes ago. If I saved you $111,364 and have you out of debt in 10.9 years, what's that worth to you?
It's worth a lot. It's
Put a number on
invaluable.
it, Aziz. 150?
Yeah, I mean, right? It could be worth that. I had one guy say it's worth 110,000 because he's still up, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that. It's not 50. It's not even 10. It's not even five. The investment's only $3,797, and they own it for life. So it's not per mortgage. It's not per a set of debt. In that case of Kate Smith, we talked about a few minutes ago, she's paying $3,797, returning 111,364. And maybe she goes and buys another house. Maybe she buys a couple rental properties. She doesn't buy the software over again. She puts those values into the software, and she's going to save even more. So her lifetime value could be three or $400,000 of savings for that initial investment of just under $3,800.
Very interesting. Very cool. Uh, I imagined you were going there when I saw that savings thing. I said, okay, we're saving this much.
Yep.
How much it's a very logical way, actually. It's a really smart way of kind of comparing and showing the value because it's almost a no-brainer at that point, right? And
Well,
so
and it is, and everyone's value is different. I mean, if Aziz's brother, if he's got $350,000 in student loans from medical school, 3,800 is like what? Right?
It's another
If
way.
you've got someone with 3 or 4 investment properties and their mortgages total could be 1.2 million, but this software is going to save them $400,000. You know, I mean, really, what? Like, I've got one mortgage broker I sold one to, and I saved him $410,000, and he was out of debt in 6.8 years. He's got his primary resident and his 2 rental properties.
Very interesting. Well, Aziz, do you have any last questions?
Yeah, actually, Chip, how can people reach you?
Fantastic. Fantastic question, Aziz. It's Chip, like chocolate chip, at Emely Group, EMELY group.com, chip at emelygroup.com, or 410-371-1351 is my direct line, my mobile. They can certainly text me. And I'm happy to, again, run an analysis. I love running analyses for people because I learn more about every scenario every time. And every scenario is different for every individual, whether it be an investor, whether it be a consumer. How much money can we save them? And with that investment being so low and a one-time only, they're not having to pay that every month or every year or any kind of renewal. It's huge for them. So yeah, I'd love to just run analyses for people and see how it works for them. It's an easy worksheet to fill out. We don't ask for any personal data, so I'm not looking for social security numbers or account numbers, nothing like that. It's just balances, payments, interest, right? Financial data is what we use for the analysis.
And as you mentioned before, the initial analysis is free, correct?
Absolutely. There's no obligation. It's totally free to see the report that I just showed you for each individual.
Cool.
Well, Chip, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, and I think this is
My
going to
pleasure.
be a really great value for us and for our listeners. Take care.
Yeah, no,
Thanks.
I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for inviting me on today and for your time. And hopefully we can work together in the future.
Definitely. Thank you.
Definitely. Look to hear more about you.